Hey, it's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, My Asexual Life. This is a place to be for education about asexuality, all things asexual, and I share my asexual life journey in order to help you in yours. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe and hit that bell icon right now. So have you ever been in a situation where you thought, is this person the one for you? Are they the right person for you to be in a relationship with or even dating? If this is a question or questions you have on your mind, then this video is for you. So I want to give you a quote now from my Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual book, 78 Life Lessons to Asexual Life. And this is a quote that's on page 135 of the printed version of the book. If you haven't yet got a copy of this, please go to Amazon and grab one for yourself. So, chapter 13, Asexual Experience, WTF. Life lesson 43. Don't allow people who don't give a shit about you to take up mental space in your head. They're not worth it. Move on with your life. Move on to the life and love you truly deserve. Believe there are good people in the world who will love you back just as much as you love them. And it will be a healthy love, not a toxic love. Not all people are toxic. So in this chapter, I talk about the fact of I've approached a couple of guys from a local dating group. And one I sent a message to, and he's accepted my friend request, Egyptian, not Indian, but so far, briefly, so good. And another guy approached me and he sent me photos that were clearly posy photos from a dating app. This is in Diary Confessions book, showing his muscles and naked chest off. And he said, "There is ugly me." Now, this immediately sprung up as a red flag for me. As soon as a guy is posing like in what loads of women would find really attractive pose and saying this is ugly me, his words completely contradict the way he looks. Now, either this guy's very insecure or very egotistical, one or the other. So I'm not sure if it was meant to be a joke, but I said I'm asexual and don't like sex, and I'm not interested in a guy's body. And he said he isn't after sex, but his photos, he messaged me, tell a different story. And the opposite one to that. So I don't think that's true, unless he's just another novelty seeker like the 20-year-old and likes an asexual experience. What the fuck that is. Whatever the fuck that is, I put. All asexuals are different anyway. I don't know of any others that are hyper romantic like me. So this is really important because there are a lot of people on the dating scene and who are even getting to relationships when they don't really want a relationship. What they want is an experience, and that's where it ends. And so I wanted to talk to you about this. It's something that is difficult when you're dating. So I'm part of Matthew Hussey's Love Life Club. Matthew Hussey, in case you didn't know, is basically the world's #1 dating and confidence coach. And I'm in his Love Life Club and I've got his Love Life book. So he's kind of the best dating advice channel on the whole of YouTube. He's like #1 in the world. So his advice holds great holds great strength, and obviously he knows what he's talking about. So Matthew talks in his book and on his channel and his club about the fact, I'll get his words right. I think this is it. So you can be disappointed that the person wasn't the one for you, but you can't grieve like they are the one for you. Do you see the difference? So you can be disappointed that a person didn't turn out to be the one for you, but you can't grieve like they are the one for you. And Matthew talks about choosing. Two people have to choose each other to be in a relationship together. Well, what happens if you did choose each other and then things still aren't working out? Well, Matthew talks about like the 4 stages of a relationship and whether it's going to last or not, where it's going to be successful. And the first stage he talks about is the interest you have in the other person. Like, is there an interest there? Is a person showing interest in you? The second part of if a relationship will be successful or not is there mutual attraction. This is like the second stage of dating. And then the third stage is commitment. Like, is the person wanting commitment as much as you? And are they following through with that commitment? And fourth is compatibility. So, as Matthew quite rightly says, unless the person is compatible with you, it doesn't matter if you love them, if you committed to each other, if you're not compatible on multiple aspects of your life, then things are not going to work in the long term. So, in order to assess whether the person you're thinking about right now is the one for you, we have to be looking at multiple areas of your life to discover if this person is suitable for you or not. However, there are going to be red flags that you already know about that you're probably ignoring because you really love this person so much. So, we have to obviously address those as well. In Matthew Hussey's Love Life book, he talks about different red flags. And he does say it's hard because there's so much dating advice out there, and an extreme of any type of thing can usually be classed as a red flag. But we have to use discernment and realize that no one is perfect. However, we should always trust our intuition also. So if there's something that's on your mind, you should be having difficult conversations. And that is one of the major signs of, is that person the right person for you or not? By telling if you can speak your mind in front of that person or not in a vulnerable way, and they accept you having hard conversations with them and they want to discuss things with you. So you can't be in a relationship when you're the only player playing in that team. I talk about this in my Diary Confessions book, right? Relationship is teamwork. Matthew also talks about teamwork in his book. And you can't have a relationship, a healthy relationship, when one of the team members is basically playing on their own. In other words, they're putting the most time, energy, and effort into the relationship or the dating, and they're not getting much in return. Matthew speaks a lot about this in his book about, is that person investing as much energy as you're investing? He talks about the fact you have to make the first move, like one of you has to make the first move, whether it's asking each other out on a date. So one of you would have to ask the other one first, whether it's approaching that person or they approach you. If no one budges, no one does anything, nothing happens. So you have to be willing to get out of your comfort zone and approach a person, but then you have to be seeing if they reciprocate back. And you have to be monitoring how much commitment they have to you in terms of not just being committed to you, but in the early stages of dating, like how much energy are they putting back into you? How committed are they to replying to your text promptly as possible, to responding to your questions? They're not avoiding it by immediately sending you a question back about yourself without answering the question you've sent them, for example. We need to be looking at these type of things. So even in text messages, you can tell if someone's going to be suitable for you or not without even getting to a full stage of dating or relationship. With the example I've just given you, that if you ask that person a question, but they don't answer that question, they then divert it back to you and ask you a question, they've avoided the question. So basically, they're avoidant. Right? This is a huge red flag. If they're going to avoid answering your questions, it means that the relationship is not going to be sustainable. The dating story is not going to be sustainable. You're going to be like two strangers to each other. That person's not going to allow you in to get to know them. Right? They've got to be answering your questions as well as you answering their questions. And they should be asking you a similar amount of questions to what you're asking them. Right? There should be balance to a certain extent, but one of you's got to make the first move. Whether that's sending the first text in the morning, approaching that person, like I said, asking them out on a date, but there should be follow through. Now, something Matthew talked about in the book immersion course he's doing just for Love Life Club members was the fact that just because someone's making plans with you doesn't mean to say they've scheduled time in with you. Scheduled time is intentional. So Matthew talks about attraction versus intention. And this is something I spoke about on this channel a lot, is intention. You have to have intention when you're dating and get into a relationship. You have to be intentional about what you're doing. This means you have to understand, what is it I actually want in a relationship? Do I want sex? Do I want marriage? Do I want kids? Do I want to live together? Where do I want to live in the world? Who do I want to share my time with? Like, do I want to spend a lot of time with a partner in the future, 5 days a week, 7 days a week, or do I just want to spend 2 days a week with them? How much time do I want to give to my friends when I'm in a relationship with someone? How much time do I want to give to my family? When can I make time to see my partner and my family together? Because obviously it's important you do at some point introduce your partner to your family if you're going to make a long-term commitment, and you should do it before you even get into a relationship with them. I would say from experience of family dynamics, you want to be getting your family to know that person, even in the dating scenario. If it's someone you're wanting to possibly get into a relationship with or spend the rest of your life with, there should be a point in the dating where you're actually saying, to your family to introduce them. If you do that, it's going to save you a lot of heartache and pain, rather than getting into a relationship and then discovering your mum, for example, can't stand the person. And then you have to split up unless you're strong enough to stick up to your mother, which a lot of people aren't. And then it can cause ruptions down the line. So you have to be thinking of all these things. You have to be thinking, like, realistically, what do you want the outcome of the end goal of the relationship to look like? What is your end goal? Is it having a house together? And is it having sex and marriage and kids and basically doing a 9 to 5 job? And, you just watch TV together, maybe go out for some walks together, blah, blah, blah. Like, what is your end goal? Or do you want to build a business together where you're both self-employed, you both work from home, you both have an office in your home? What is it you actually want? Do you want, like, a job where 6 months of the year you can both go traveling together? That means you have to find someone who likes traveling equally as you do, right? So you have to be thinking about all these things. Do you want to live in the countryside, or do you want to live in the city? Can you be with someone who's extroverted if you're extremely introverted? Is that just going to cause arguments? You have to be thinking of all these things. Is your lifestyle compatible? Like, if they work nights and you work days, when are you going to see each other? If it's a long distance, how often are you going to see each other? Are you going to be able to make each other happy in the long term if you can't spend much time with each other? How are you going to organize your evenings together? How are you going to organize your days together? Did they have different days off to you, which makes seeing each other absolutely impossible? Like, you have to be thinking about all these things, because what Matthew talks about a lot in his book is needs. We have to be getting someone who can match our needs and meet our needs, because it's no good staying in a relationship with someone, however much you love them, if they can't match and meet your needs, because you'll be unhappy. And however much you love them and however much attractive they are, and however much you don't want the person to leave you, or you don't want to leave that person, if they're not making you happy, you're signing yourself up for a contract of prison, basically, where you're confining yourself to being with this person who can't make you happy, and creating a prison around yourself with that person. You should feel free to a certain extent whilst also being in the relationship. You should obviously know that with a relationship comes hard work, right? The fact that people think, oh, I'll get into a relationship and don't have to do any work. No, it takes work. A relationship is another full-time job, right? It requires time, energy, and effort on both people's parts. But something that I really do favour is scheduling dates in. And Matthew specifically brought that topic up today in the Love Life Club. Is just because a guy wants to make plans with you and is making plans, is anything actually scheduled on the calendar? Is he actually scheduling stuff, or is he just talking about making plans? Like, oh, I can't wait till we go here together. But he doesn't actually say, okay, so when would you like to go there together? Can we arrange that now? Like, like putting dates in the diary each week. You should be dating each other, whether you've been in a relationship like a month, 2 years, 5 years. You never stop dating each other. As Matthew puts it, if you're in a relationship, you just date one person if you're monogamous. right? You don't stop dating each other because you have to usually have date at least once a month in a relationship to keep the relationship fire and spark going, right? You can't just expect the flames to ignite and then continue by themselves. It's like a fire, right? If you've got a coal fire, you have to keep putting coal on the fire for it to burn the flames, for it to continue to melt your heart. So you have to put a lot of time, energy, and effort and work into the relationship. But if you've got a person who shuts down whenever things are difficult and you try to have a difficult conversation with them, they shut down and they don't want to communicate with you and they don't want to answer your questions, you can't be in a relationship like that with someone. You can bring it to their attention. You can say, hey, when I try to discuss difficult things with you, I feel you shut down. It's really hard for me to talk to you, and you're a really important person in my life. And it hurts because I feel distant from you. How can we work on this together to resolve this? But if they are not open to talking to you, if they shut down and refuse to talk to you, there's nothing more you can do but leave the relationship, because you can't work with someone who's not willing to work with you, because it's a team effort. A relationship is not some sort of experience, like when we have romantic experiences. So, for example, when I go to a nightclub and I kiss a guy, in my mind, because I'm a hyper romantic, I'd be like, oh, yeah, it'd be great. Like a lot of the guys I kiss in the past, it'd be like, oh, it'd be great if it ever did turn into a relationship. That does run through my head quite a bit. But usually I know with clubbing that it's just an experience, right? I've learned to detach from those guys because that's what most of them are looking for. They're looking to hook up or just have an experience. They're not looking for something committed, right? But there's a lot of people who are actually on dating sites that are doing that, and they're not being intentional about dating. Their intention is just to like hook up and just have an experience. And there's a lot of people who are talking to asexuals to have an asexual experience. In my experience, there's a lot of guys. So that's what I was talking about in this book. I talk about there's a 20-year-old British guy actually I met on Badoo in this book. And he talks about having an experience. And that's not someone who's looking for a serious and committed relationship. That's someone who actually wants an experience. And the danger is asexuality can be a novelty to some people. And they're like, hang on a minute, I want to try this asexuality. I want to try a relationship with an asexual or to date an asexual because it's a novelty for them. But that's not a long lasting committed relationship. That's just an experience. That's just like a romantic fantasy. And it's one where they're trying to make it a reality, but it's not a long lasting thing. So Matthew talks a lot about the principles of long lasting love in this book, right? And so you've got to be aware of these things. Like, how compatible is that person with you? If the person's not compatible with you, it won't work. So we've talked a little bit about compatibility already, but let's go and dive a bit deeper into that. So I've talked about deal breakers, like in terms of compatibility, is that person compatible with you? Do they want sex, marriage, kids, to live together? And do you want those things? So when you go on dating sites, don't be afraid in the early stages of dating to ask the general questions what they're looking for. You don't have to go around saying, hey, I want to get married. Are you up for that? Like with me, you don't say that type of thing. You don't direct it and make it personal. You just say to them, I want to know what's your view on sex, on marriage and kids and living together. Or you can see in my bio that I'm not interested in having sex. How do you feel about that? Or you can see in my bio that I'm not interested in having kids. How do you feel about that? But you will get some guys who'll blatantly lie. I've had guys in the past when I was on Badoo, actively on there, and I was looking for a relationship, who said that they put in their bio they want children, and they'll contact me and message me, and I'll say, look, in my bio I clearly state I don't want kids, and you want kids, and they'll then deny it and say I don't want kids and take it off there. That is lying. That's deceit. So you don't want to be getting into a relationship with that type of person. You don't want to be in any type of relationship with someone where down the line they already know they're going to change their mind. I mean, you can't predict someone changing their mind or not about certain things, right? Everyone has a right to change their mind about what they do in their life and with their body. But for example, because I like younger guys, when I was on dating sites, actively dating, I would ask a guy about, like, "I don't want kids. Are you happy with that?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure. I don't want kids for like 5 years." And I'm like, "But I'm not looking for a casual relationship or a short-term relationship. Therefore, you're not suitable for me." Because maybe that person doesn't want kids now, but maybe they want them in 5 or 10 years' time. If you don't want kids at all, that person is not suitable for you. So you need to actually actively pay attention in the present moment. Matthew talks about this a lot. He talks about that you need to pay attention to what people say in the present moment rather than creating a story in your head of what might be. You need to deal with the reality of what is, not what might be. So make sure when you're on dating sites that you're listening. If someone says, "Oh, I'm okay not having sex," you have to ask them the question, is that a decision that you take forever? Or, is that something you can live without forever? Or is that just for a few years or a few months? Because just because someone says they can live without sex doesn't mean to say they can live without sex indefinitely. So if you're a sex repulsed asexual, you need to be asking them this question. You need to be asking them, okay, so, like, I'm an asexual who doesn't want sex. I don't want it ever. So, how do you feel about that? I might say, fine. And then you say, okay, but I'm looking for monogamous relationships. So I'm looking for a guy who doesn't want to sleep with other women or whatever gender it is. I'm looking for a guy who's just, in a relationship with me, but not having sex with other people. How do you feel about that? Because just because they say they're okay not having sex and they don't have to have that with you doesn't mean to say they're not going to get their sex elsewhere. So you have to be having these honest, open conversations and seeing how the landlines. But the more open and honest conversations, difficult conversations you have up front, the better it is. But there are people that lie to you. Matthew talks about this in his book. He talks about how people will try to impress you. They're on their best behavior. And so some people, they will love bomb you, as in shower you with compliments, shower with you affection. They will literally show their best side and might give you mind-blowing dates. And you might get on horrendously well with the person. It might be the best date you've ever had in your life, and all fireworks are exploding inside you. It might be the most romantic and best date. The guy or whatever gender you're into might seem to be the best person you've ever dated in your life, the most romantic person, the most sensual person, the most sexiest person, or a sexy person. They might do and say all the right things, but a lot of the time that's an act to get something out of you, to get a result out of you, not because they genuinely care about you. So you have to be taking time over a period of time to find out what this person is truly like, rather than just taking them at face value on what they're portraying themselves to be in the instant moment that you're seeing them. Because everyone has flaws, everyone has weaknesses, everyone has faults as well as strengths. And in day-to-day living with that person, can you live with them? Can you be with them? And something I've done in the past, which is not good, is I've been with a guy who was really good for the first few weeks in a relationship. This was like my long-term ex, for example. And after a few weeks or a few months, he then turned out to be different. He was very abusive in every way, but not sexually. My long-term ex, not my last ex, my long-term ex. 2011, we're talking about, we split up. So I was friends with that guy, my long-term ex, 8 months before I got into a relationship with him. So I didn't expect things to turn out like that because I gave it time to get to know him. I saw him as a friend lots before I got into a relationship with him. So even if you do know some person for quite a few months, doesn't mean to say they're still not keeping up a facade, because they want to get something out of you. They want to get you into a relationship. But once you're in a relationship with them, you also have to ask yourself, how are they treating you now you're in that relationship with them? Are they still as attentive? Are they still as enthusiastic? Are they still wanting to please you and wanting to also match your needs and listen to your needs? Are they negotiating things with you? Are they sharing their needs? Are they communicating effectively with you about what they want? Are they listening to you about what you want? If they're not doing these things, then the relationship's going to be wrong and not likely to last. Because, like I said, you can't have a relationship which is a team effort when you're playing a one-sided game, or mostly a one-sided game, right? So I want you to think about the person you're thinking about now and ask yourself, like, how do they actually make you feel when you're around them? Like, compare how they made you feel in the beginning when you first met them to how they're making you feel now if you've been with that person for a few weeks or a few months or a few years. And ask yourself, are you still clinging to the idea that they might go back to the way they were in the beginning with you? Because if you are, this is dangerous. You've got to base your relationship on how they are now with you, not what they were like with you. Because we have to deal with the reality of what's in front of us, not what might have been or what was and isn't anymore. And this is really difficult because a lot of people, especially people who are trying to use you for their own means, they will literally lure you in and they will love bomb you. Matthew Hussey talks about this a lot in his book. And it gives you a false sense of security and it makes you feel really special. You feel like you've got a special bond with that person. So once they've lured you in and they've said all these compliments, they've done everything right that they can possibly do, blown your mind, be the best lover, be the best partner, whatever, and then they've got you where they want you, as in a relationship, then their behavior changes is because they've got you where they want you. But you have to understand you don't have to stay in that position. You can move away from it, even if you got into a relationship. One of the worst things is if they make you commit very early on without no consequences of if they change their behavior of you leaving them. So I did say in the last relationship, the short-term relationship I've been in recently this year, is that I would be in a relationship with that guy providing he continued to make me feel good. I said that at the very beginning when I accepted getting into a relationship with him. And then I told him when I wasn't feeling good anymore. And I reminded him not to take me for granted. And I said to him, I told you I would be in a relationship with you, providing I still feel good when I'm with you and in the relationship. But I wasn't feeling that way. And he knew why. And then he couldn't meet my standards. He couldn't make me happy in the end. He couldn't match my needs. And you have to understand that people say and do things that aren't necessarily true to get you to be in a relationship with them. And they change their behavior and attitude because they were never really that person in the first place. Or they were in those moments because they wanted something. But when they've got what they wanted and achieved it and conquered it, it's more like they wanted an experience rather than the actual person and the actual relationship. And it's the experience that led them to doing all those behaviors that would attract you, because once they've got their experience, they don't really need you anymore. They don't need that relationship anymore. They're not invested in it as much or at all. So you have to be asking yourself the real hard-hitting questions like, how did this person make me feel when I first got with them? How are they making me feel now? Am I feeling miserable with them or am I feeling happy? Am I feeling happy the majority of time or am I full of anxiety and fear and dread? Am I scared to talk to them? When I talk to them, do they blur my reality? When I talk to them, do they turn the problems I've got with them on me? When I talk to them, do they shut down? Like if someone's angry with you in a argument, they can feel angry with you, but they should say, okay, I'm going to take like 30 minutes to calm down, time out, but I'm going to come back to talk to you about this in 30 minutes time. They can't just shut down indefinitely and give you the silent treatment because that's a way of manipulating and controlling you. Because by giving you the silent treatment, it's making you fearful of talking to them again. The whole idea is to make you so fearful you don't bring up difficult topics anymore so that they can continue their bad behavior. So you have to watch out for all these difficult things. And if you are experiencing a lot of hurt and a lot of pain, I want you to ask yourself, how long is that sustainable for you? How many years of your future life do you want to waste being miserable and unhappy with this person because they're not matching your needs? If that person's not matching your needs, I don't care what your family thinks or your friends think or whatever another person thinks. If you're not happy, you need to leave that relationship. even if you've not been long with them and you're worried and scared about what all your friends might think. You might notice on this channel, I had a relationship that I got into. I declared he was my soulmate. I thought I was going to be with him forever. I even considered marriage, which I don't usually consider, or living together with someone. I'm not usually into those things. I told you all this on my channel openly. I discovered after just a few short weeks that this guy wasn't the right guy for me. He wasn't treating me right, and things were not good in the end, and I was highly anxiety induced and stressed, right? Which he knew I was. And so I then said we broke up. I announced we broke up, and he wasn't my soulmate after all. And that takes bravery and courage to do that. It takes bravery and courage to know that I'm being my authentic self and I'm telling it like it is. I'm not going to hide for 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever months pretending things are okay when they weren't. They were very good in the beginning, mostly, right? But we've just discussed why that can be. So I want you to know that it's okay to make a quick decision about a person rather than spending months and years of your life thinking, shall I keep giving this person a chance? My friends like that person now, my family likes the person, these people think they're nice, but that's not what they're being like to me. It doesn't matter what other people think. If they're not being good to you and they're not matching your needs, then you need to let them go. Because the longer we stay in the wrong relationship, the right relationship can't come along. I've said this before on this channel loads of times. We cannot have the right person in our heart when the wrong person is still in it. And I do mean that wholeheartedly. If you're still loving your ex, then yes, you need time to heal. You need to take time out for you to get to know yourself better again, to get to trust yourself again. Because if that person blurred your reality, if they made you out to be the problem when you were trying to go to them with a problem, if they didn't take any responsibility and accountability for the way they treat you, they didn't say sorry for treating you badly, that's going to have big effects on you. It's going to have effects on your emotional state, on your physiology, and it's also going to have effects on your trust with yourself and other people. So you need to take time out from dating a relationship to actually be with yourself, to spend time with yourself again, to get self-regulated with your emotions again. Because relationships are emotional. They're very difficult. And if you're an empath and you really love that person, you put all your time and energy and effort into that person, and in the end, they basically gave you less and less of what you deserve, then that does have an impact on you. It does take its toll on you. We have to have self-compassion for yourself, that you did the best you could in that situation with the tools you had, with the feelings you had, the overwhelming urges you had to be with that person, with the romantic feelings you had. And you have to understand it's okay. People make mistakes, and you don't even have to think about it as a mistake. You can just think of it as a lesson that you'll learn from. Sometimes our lesson is to understand why we attract the wrong people, understand why we put up with bad behavior for so long, understand where that comes from, what's in our childhood, what's in our past traumas that allows us to let people keep using us or abusing us or being bad to us, or when we hold them accountable, we then don't keep the accountability. We let them talk us into accepting their bad behavior and stuff like that. So we are responsible for who we let into our lives and who we keep in our lives. So I want you to be thinking about these things. So we've talked about deal breakers. Are you compatible in terms of deal breakers? Sex, marriage, kids, living together. Right? Have you discussed this very early on? There's no point in you even dating someone if they want kids and you don't, for example. Are you compatible on career goals? Does that person know what career they want to do? Are they in the career of their dreams? Are they settled? Are they living their career purpose? If they're not and they're still trying to figure that out, they might end up moving to different places in their life until they've settled on somewhere that they can have the career that fulfills them. So this is a red flag. It's not only a red flag, it means you might not be compatible at all. If that person wants to move across the globe to continue their study, but you're settled where you are, that's not going to work. That's incompatible. We talked a bit about introversion and extroversion. So I'm an extrovert, but I do have some introvert tendencies. And I could be in a relationship with an introvert, providing the introvert does like going out with me sometimes and is happy to still be around me with people sometimes and stuff like that, and likes going out as well as staying in. But if the introverted person hated going out, never wanted to go out in public with me, that wouldn't suit me. Similarly, if the introvert was going to be upset that I'm too extrovert for them, I want to go out too much, then that's not going to work because they aren't going to get their needs met. I'm not going to get my needs met. So you have to be considering this, like how introverted are you or how extroverted are you? And how can you work together as a team to be happy with that? If you're not happy, then that's not going to work. If two people's joy can be experienced outside the relationship and in the relationship, that's good. But if two people's joys are completely different and you're never going to be able to spend much time together because what you both enjoy and brings you joy is going to mean that you're spending much more time apart than together, then that's not going to work really. That's not going to be compatible. If one person loves getting up late and working till the early hours of the morning, the other person is a real morning person, how is that going to work in practical terms? Now, there may be ways you can sort that out. If you live in two separate places, the person gets up early, you're not disturbing that person, or say you have separate rooms in a home with separate ensuite, stuff like that, that could possibly work as well. But you know what I mean? The practicalities, you've got to think of that. Do you want someone who lives in separate rooms to you? Do you want someone who you hardly see because you're like passing ships at the night because your shifts are so different? Or could that work out well if that person's used to getting up like 5 or 6 in the morning and going to the gym, but you're used to working late till 2 in the morning or whatever? Like, is that going to work? It might, but if you have weekends together, but it might be like just not enough. But say that person went to the gym, like they got up at 5 usually to go to the gym at 6. But say maybe they're happy to get up at 4 and you don't go to sleep usually till like, 4, or well, maybe you could make an extra hour for them between 4 and 5. You do a video call with them 4 to 5, and then they get up 1 hour early and you go to bed 1 hour late or something like that. Do you know what I mean? That type of thing. Or maybe there's a time in the day where you both cross over where you can have some spare time together. You got to be thinking about all these things. If it's a long distance relationship, are you going to be happy with that? Are you going to be happy seeing each other like once a week or once every 2 weeks? Is that going to be enough for you? If it's not going to be enough for you, it's just going to cause arguments, then you're not compatible. There has to be an end goal as well. If you're in a long distance relationship, one person has to move to live near the other. Usually it's not sustainable to keep living apart, although I do know someone who did it for 5 years and then one of the people moved because they were studying. So you've got to think of the end goal. Like, it's okay if you've got an end goal of what you actually want to do, you've got the money to do it and the facilities to do it, but ask yourself these questions. Like, are your value systems the same, or are they compatible? Like, if someone values like money more than anything else, and you value quality time with that person, but they want to work all hours in the office just to get as much money as possible, and you want someone to put you first and spend quality time with you rather than being in the office all the time, that's not compatible. You're not getting your needs met. Do you see how this works? If someone's like wanting to spend money all the time, every day, just go out for meals and spend it frivolously, but you're a saver and you want to save for the future, then unless you have separate bank accounts, live separately, so it doesn't really affect each other, then that's not going to bode well for your future. You're not going to be compatible. Right? There could be a scenario where you both have a pot of money you save for a holiday together. So you both put money in that pot each month, but the rest of the time have separate bank accounts and live separately. But if you don't want to live separately, you want to live with that person, then how they spend their money is going to affect you, because it's going to affect, buying things together for the home, for example. It's going to affect the priorities in the relationship. One of my exes, my last long-term ex, not short-term ex, long-term ex who I split up with me in 2011, his priority was like buying the latest cool clothes and looking good. But when it came to a bed, for example, and my back was hurting, he didn't want to buy a new bed because he didn't want to spend money on that. That wasn't interesting to him. He'd rather spend money on video games or the latest cool clothing, the latest aftershave that's really expensive, and the curtains would hang off the rail and I couldn't sleep because it was letting light into the room. The bed and mattress I think he got from a friend, if I remember right, it was horrible. I was in pain. He wasn't putting my needs first. He was putting his cool ego lifestyle first. So that wasn't compatible. You have to be thinking about all these things. So just because you think someone is the one doesn't make them the one. And as Matthew says, they're not the one if they don't choose you and you don't choose them. But even if you do choose each other, if you're not compatible, they're not your person and you're not theirs. And so you have to move on. So I haven't actually found my person yet who chooses me and to be with me forever. So he's still out there somewhere. But the best person to choose is yourself. Therefore, you can never leave yourself, let yourself down. Hopefully. And if you do, you quickly change it around because you don't want years of agony and pain with yourself, right? You want to be there for yourself. So if you're in a relationship that's not suitable for you, then have the difficult conversations and get out of it. You don't want to spend the rest of your life being miserable, 5-10 years, wasting it away when you could be meeting better people, more honest people, more compatible people. You just need one person, actually, if you're monogamous for a relationship. That's all you need. But it's better to be by yourself and be happier and joy in your heart than it is to be with the wrong person who's making you miserable and a lesser version of yourself than you deserve to be. You deserve to be whole. You deserve to be loved wholeheartedly for who you are, with all your scars and your baggage and with things that aren't perfect about you. Of course, you should be working on yourself. Of course, if you've got some issues that you know is really bad and not good for another person who could be toxic, you could be toxic for them, then you have to work on them. Of course you do. Take time out for you, right? But notice how you behave and interact with yourself. Get better at being good with yourself, timekeeping with yourself, punctuality with yourself, keeping promises to yourself, matching your own needs, loving on yourself, and work out really what you want in a relationship. Look for character traits rather than physical attraction. Look for kindness, caringness, honesty, people that follow through and accountable and responsible for their actions, timekeeping, all this type of thing, trustworthiness, caringness, empathy. Look for this on a persistent and consistent basis. Let us both go for character traits rather than instant attraction when it comes to serious committed relationship. If you want experience, just know that it is an experience and don't pretend it's anything else, and don't go looking to get into a serious committed relationship if that's not really what you want. Don't lie to yourself and don't lie to others. So I want you to think about the person you've got in your head now. Is that person the one for you? If they've not chosen you and they're not liking you back and they said, I'm not interested in a relationship, or I can't make you happy, or I don't want to be with you, they're not your person. Don't spend years of your life wishing that they were. They're not your person. Find the person who loves you for who you are and who can make you happy and match your needs. I hope you found this video useful, helpful, insightful. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode. And you can grab a copy of Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual, 78 Life Lessons to Ace Your Life and Ace Your Love Life on Amazon. Lots of love to you. And don't forget to grab a copy of Asexual Perspectives, also on Amazon. And Matthew Hussey's books available on Amazon as well. Love life. Lots of love to you. Take care. Bye. See you on the next video live stream. Thumbs up.